Sounds good. Well, first off, thank you both for having me. I'm really happy to be here and my first live on Substack. My name is Jessica Amos. I am a mindfulness teacher, a life coach, a punk rocker, a writer, a poet. I mean, really, you could throw like any title at me, and I feel like I'd say yes to it, honestly. Like ultimately in my heart, I love to write, I love to create, but I also love to just offer my work and my heart as a way to help other people know that they're not alone in the human experience. So, years ago, I started a website called Stay With Yourself, which is the practice of being who you are, where you are. And we might get into that story later, but it started as a storytelling co-op. I love writing and telling stories and personal stories and inviting people to share their stories as a way to just first off get the catharsis of not holding things secretly and privately anymore, and also to find out we're not alone. We have to talk about things and bring them out into the open so that others can say, ah, yeah, me too. That's me too. So pretty much all of my work stems from that of off a connection and finding out we're not alone, learning to stay with ourselves, doing our healing work. That's our work to do, but we don't have to do it alone. So courses, classes, meditations, music, writing, all that stuff just comes from that central place. Yeah.
Um, well, that's great. I went through your stuff and I'm fascinated. And like I said when we talked before we got on the air, I know for a fact I'm going to be off topic the majority of this thing because what I thought I wanted to know and now what I really want to know are two completely different things. So, I know Richard had a question, and I'll let him lead off because that's fair. And I'm going to go crazy for a second.
Okay. Well, thanks, Joe. And hey, Jessica, you say you're staying with yourself, and this is an important part in our lives. And I recall you saying sometime just a few weeks ago that you might be staying with yourself more literally because your grown children are off to their respective post-secondary education locations. And in this time of your life where you're going to be literally an empty nester, how are you feeling?
Ah. That's- I feel a lot of things. I feel perfectly fine in many ways, like life business as usual. If I let my mind get carried away with me into nostalgia and thinking about all these years I've spent raising kids, and I feel very just nostalgic and sad and all the things. And I also feel hopeful and excited. So I feel really a lot of things right now, and there's a lot of just you don't realize, even though I've been independent, I've been a single mom for so long with two kids, you don't realize no matter how independent you are as an adult, how much the identity of like mother gets wrapped up in who you are. Everything I've done, almost everything I've done, all the work I've done to even work from home, to stay home and work from home and create a business where I could work from home and be here with my children. Even that, everything's up for question. Everything is up for question. And it's very similar to when I went through like my first awakening, where like you pull at one little thread and now suddenly um everything is connected. So one little thing, big thing changing, which is kids leaving the nest, kind of really starts to unravel my reason for everything I do.
Well, let me say this. I saw that reel that you posted or a series of pictures of your children, and I've never met them, and just getting to know you recently, Jessica. If you ever want to bring a tear to your eye and open your heart and feel really warm, just watch that video again because it really brought a tear to my eye and how beautiful it was to see your children grow. And in fact, I think your daughter is standing in the same doorway of it looks like a commercial brick building in a
Mm.
photo with you that you seem to like on your Substack. I really like that kind of edgy commercial building and you wearing your sunglasses and sundress or whatever. And then your daughter's in the picture too. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, Joe, what have you got now that you've been cooking there for a bit.
Well, I mean, the first one I am curious about because you said that your awakening became after the birth of your first child, and um, and I understand that. I mean, obviously, you've got the mother side of it. I've got the father side. My real one came on the birth of my last child, and I had my first two girls, and um, I always do this. Um, that changed me, and that took me from I was I don't know, I was probably a jerk. I was ex-military. I was a helicopter crew chief. I was gung ho. I was going to conquer the world, and I had kids, and that changed me. And then you kind of forget that because I did that when I was 27 years old, and I was fortunate enough again at now. I'm not. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm 55 now, but I got a 2-year-old now, which was kind of a surprise. I didn't know. Hey, I'm gonna have another child in my 50s, but it's reinvented me again. So um, I'm curious, how do you see that changed in you and how did you begin again?
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, back when I first had my first child, my daughter, which was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago now, it was like it was one thing to just be, like, living my life unconsciously, but then you have this, like, innocent life growing inside of you, and you're thinking, like, what are the things that you wanna be able to offer this child, and realizing that it might be okay for me to have tolerated some things in my life, maybe some of my family systems or some of the things that you're just used to, but then, like, here's this innocent child that, like, gets to start fresh, and, like, what do I want to bring her around and introduce her to, and I really appreciate that I understood at the age of 24 as a new mom, I understood that I couldn't give my child anything I couldn't give myself, because we lead by example, we show our children how to live, we don't tell them. So, if I wanted her and my son too, who came later, to love themselves, to like themselves, to respect themselves, to walk through the world with confidence and ease and peace and all the things that I valued, right? I would have to now start to give that to myself. And that was really where a lot of the awakening happened, and it forced me to really face a lot of the pain I'd been carrying that I'd never had to face before. So that was, like, where the awakening really happened, and now it feels like it's happening again on, like, another level of, like, who am I? What do I want? How do I wanna live? What sort of, again, what example am I setting for myself and for them? And, so it feels like a real full circle moment in a lot of ways. Yeah, very mixed.
Yeah, I understand, and I envy mothers because I think you get like 9 months of growth, and you're
Mhm,
already attached. And for fathers, it's a little bit different in that we go 9 months observing and going through the process, and in a span of seconds, we're not a dad, and there's that wham, that moment, and it's completely, I can't understand how it is for a mom, just like a mom can't understand how it is for a dad, but standing there in that, I'm not going to talk about it because I'll get emotional, but just standing there in that room and being handed a child, and all of a sudden you realize, wow, life changed. And, I think one of my biggest moments outside of that came from something you just talked about was realizing we have to change the way we live a little bit and what we accept. And I was giving a speech one time to a group of people, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking about kids because I love talking about my kids. And I said, I was talking to my children. I'm like, you can be this, you can be anything you want to if you set your mind to it. You can be president, you can be anything you want to be. And then I stopped and I was like, what? Well, what the hell happened to me?
mm,
Why did I accept limitations that I've got? And I'm standing here telling the thing I love most in the world that she doesn't have to. And that kind of changed my life. a little bit, and then you forget it as you go. And then, as I'm older and hopefully wiser, I know I'm not as stupid as I used to be, but as I get older, now that I had this new one, again, I'm like you say, you've got to lead by example. And if you don't show your kids that enthusiasm and 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 that you can live that way, then they're going to follow the other example. They're going to sit there and stress about bills. They're going to stress about money. They're going to stress about accomplishment. They're going to stress about promotions, and they will follow you whether you think they do or not. And if you don't think, I think most of our listeners and most people on here are parents. But if you're not a parent, you don't think they're little sponges, you are completely wrong. They learn everything.
Mhm.
So I'll shut up for a minute and let Richard talk because I told you I'd get off topic, but
Well, plus you're getting a little teary there, Joe, and that's a good thing to show that
I
emotional
always
side.
do when I bring up my kids. I always do.
I know. I know. So, hey, Jessica, tell me, with that in mind, like you've had the deep remaking, you're talking about how you feel you need to maybe remake yourself over again now that you're at this pivotal point in your life. What would you tell somebody that's feeling that unraveling beginning now and maybe afraid to face that
Mm.
that new phase? What would you have to say to that person?
The first thing that comes to mind is like you can't unring the bell.
Mm.
Like basically what that means is like once you are aware, you can't go back. Once you are awake, you can't go back to sleep. And I know it can seem scary, but like you're already there. You're already on the path. You've already been like placed in a new land, so to speak. And that's a gift. So allowing whatever wants to come up to come up. Like I said, I went through a huge phase of grief when I first went through my awakening because it was like a flood of all the things that had been unconscious in me, all the pains, all the hurts, all the ways I had kind of survived even in my childhood and stuff that I hadn't looked at or thought about. And honestly, that came as a huge relief. It came as a huge relief to not have to hold myself together anymore, honestly. It was relieving. So I say just embrace the relief of being on the side of things where you get to finally just feel things and let go and kind of have the relief of that. And while you're at it, just know that you've already arrived into your awakening, so there's not really anything else you have to do but just, like, allow it to unfold, and that's very much where even the process of stay with yourself for me has come in, is not tripping over the past or tripping over the future. I think Ram Dass says, like, the past is a trip you can never go on again, and the future's a trip you will never take because the past is memory and the future hasn't happened. So just allowing yourself to be grateful that you've arrived in this place and facing things as it comes up and trusting that that's the unfolding, that's the unmaking in present time.
I really like that, Jessica, because the embracing part, I think, is the most important part, not to be afraid of it. And you really help us see that by your own example and the messaging that you're putting out there in the world today. And Joe mentioned it earlier with the things that he saw in your Substack, and I've heard it in your voice on Insight Timer as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that part of yourself and allowing us to see that and be able to incorporate that into our lives. Back to you, Joe.
Well, I had this question, but I answered it on your website, so I'll let you speak to everybody else about it because this is where I found the stuff I love. So, you resist perfectionism, um, and that I'm going to ask in a minute how you teach that presence without making it performative because it seems like a lot of the stuff online now is performative, and it's
Mhm.
just people trying to market things and I think that's the society and the world that we live in now, that there's a problem and there's a solution, and you have the problem and I have the solution, and that's the marketing that we follow on everything now. And I was standing in the kitchen earlier making lunch and I was thinking about that, and it goes all the way back to I think the first time I decided, as a man, because there's the stigma against man, let's just say, and I said, I'm going to go sit down and talk to somebody. And I sat down and I talked to the woman for 30 minutes. And, um, she sat there and she pulled out her prescription pad. She said, I want you to try this. And I said, I don't want medicine. And she says, well, have you considered, Joe, that you might be bipolar? And I said, I've considered that I might be related to aliens, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily the case. I could be many things. And she said, well, it sounds to me like you are. And I said, you've known me for 30 minutes. I've known myself for 50 years. I think I can figure it out a little bit better than you can. And, the just going through these stages and and I think you have to get to a certain age in most cases where you realize you have that much, um, confidence and courage to stand up to you've been to school or not you, but the doctor for 7 years. That doesn't mean you know me after I walk in your office for 30 minutes. But when I got on your site and I was reading, I think one of my favorites is the list of things I'm no longer doing and the list of things that I am doing. I love that list, although I'm not usually a list guy. But the letting shame hold me back from speaking what's true for me, I think that's phenomenal. I mean, and I think we all need to be better at that. We need to be able to speak our own voice without shame. Um, and I think that ties into a lot of one is acting as if I don't know my own power, value, and worth, because I think that's our major issue in the world today is we forget how much we're worth. We forget how powerful we are. We forget, and it's because of how I have to say this because my mom listens and reads these things. It's not your fault, Mom. Um, we were raised in church, some of us, and you started off with that concept of original sin and being told you're not worthy. And I love that you have this list that speaks to things like that. So, um, how do you teach that presence without making it performative on your side?
Yeah, well, I really love this question, and I think that as someone who is a recovering perfectionist, recovering people pleaser, like recovering codependency, I've learned so much to be performative. Like we learn it in church to be performative. We learn it in our homes to be performative. We learn it in school to be performative. So much of our way we are raised throughout all the subcultures and larger culture is to be performative as a woman, as a man, as a mother, as a father, as a child, as an adult. So I think that again, that kind of comes with again that the awakening piece, the realizing that I do get to choose how I show up to my life. I get to choose the person that I am. There's some things I can't help. Like I have my personality is all over the place on any given day from morning to night. And I don't mind that. That's fine. I love the idea that I'm a conduit for personality to just come through and it's unique and all its own. But I also get to decide how I express, how I live, what's important to me. And it's not for anyone else at a certain point. It's because we're responsible for our own happiness. We're the ones that have to live with ourselves at the end of the day. We're the ones that have to live with ourselves in every conversation, in every argument, in every reaction. And I think for me, that's when I started, like, it went from, okay, I know that I struggle with boundaries, people pleasing, codependency, all these things. I can know these things, but then when rubber meets the road, when practice actually has to come in, when I actually have to change how I'm responding, how I'm showing up, the person that I'm choosing to be in my daily life, that's because I have to live with me at the end of the day. And that's sometimes like how I have learned to overcome some of the shame cycles, the self-judgment, the all the things is to not be looking outside of myself for who I should be and how I should be. So a lot of it is quiet. It's not for accolades. It's not because anyone notices. And sometimes I really struggle with that because I love affirmation. I'm fucking addicted to affirmation. I love it. That's like my Achilles heel. Like I love a good compliment. And I've gotten pulled in by some very slick words in my lifetime. I've learned that that has to still come from within. Do I like it? Do I love it? Do I enjoy it? Does it make me happy? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, then that is what I'm going to do. And then that starts to spill outwards into my life, into my relationships. And it's not performative. It's coming from a genuine place because I'm taking the time to really explore, what's true for me. Um, so, I mean, that's how I combat it. I also combat it with a lot of the mundane, falling in love with the mundane. I have a whole course called Sacred Habits, which is very much about falling in love and making the mundane aspects of life holy and sacred and enjoyable. So it might seem like a chore or a task, but also this is a gift that we get to tend to our lives and finding the beauty and the sacredness in just the totally average and ordinary moments, because that's the majority of what life is. And that I would say, I mean, I just feel it now. It like lights me up to even talk about it, because I'd say that's where it wipes away all performance and just becomes about like the holy doorway, the humble doorway of like scrubbing the floors, you know?
Yeah,
Hey, everybody, let's give it a big F yeah, buddy. Hey, how'd it go, Jessica? F yeah.
so I agree. Um, I don't know that I could agree more. And it is difficult to. I understand the difficulty of not being performative. It's out there for all of us, whether we want to admit it or not. It's even in my writing. I have to step back and step away from it sometimes and saying you're trying to be too much instead of being true to what you want to say. And I always tell people, I even wrote a piece this morning, like, if you want to know the real me, go read my humorous side. Go read the humor side, because that's where I'm being an idiot. And I am an idiot. 9 times out of 10, I'm being an idiot. I'm not being the serious guy. And if you read just my serious stuff, you'll think, man, Joe's deep. Joe's out there. Joe's not. Joe's out setting firecrackers under fire or under cans and still he's an idiot. And he's a happy idiot. So I'm fine with that. But I'll go ahead, Rich. I'll let you have this one because I don't want to get too crazy, but
No, well, that's great, Joe. And Jessica, like we're getting a lot of feedback here on the feed right now, and the energy that you're putting out, and the candidness of your your story, and just the demeanor of you is so wonderful to have you here today. So there's an accolade and that affirmation for you. So you can give yourself a big high five now. Okay, there you go. Hey, but I'm going to bring you back to some times maybe where you didn't feel so good. Let me just ask this. Are you willing to talk about some of your childhood, and maybe there could be some shame in that, and maybe people need to hear that you can get beyond that. Would you be willing to talk about your childhood?
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Um, yeah. So, I mean, like the overall story, I mean, it's a good story. When I was, a 10-month-old baby, my biological father died. And then a couple of years after that, my mom went to prison. And so I went to go live with my grandparents, and was raised kind of idyllic, like coming into consciousness and, awareness as a young child. First memories are with my grandparents. And then my mom got out of prison. She had been a born again Christian. While in prison, she was saved. She got out. She met my stepdad, who had been in San Quentin prison in California. He had also become a born again Christian in prison. And so they were just like well matched, got pregnant, had a baby, got married. And so very quickly, when I was like 6 or 7, I had a new mom, a new dad, a new baby brother, and I went to go live in this family where my parents, who are now ex-convicts, kind of replaced some of their addictions with religion. So it was very strict. It was abusive. It was all over the place. So there was every kind of shame. There was shame from God. There was shame from parents. There was shame from all kinds of ways. And I just, as a kid, we're adaptable. We learn to survive it. And I didn't really realize I had grown up in an abusive home until I got pregnant. And I started facing my childhood and realized, like, wow, I had a mentor who I'd kind of revealed some things. I'd never talked about my childhood to anybody or my family. And he Goodwill hunted me and he was like, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." And I just started breaking down crying. No one had ever told me that it wasn't my fault that my stepfather was abusive to me or to, other members of the family. And so then I had to start facing it and grieving it. So that's sort of like the early story. And I've done a lot of work around, just forgiving myself, forgiving my parents, having compassion, bringing compassion into it. But the truth is, and it makes me emotional to say it now, I still very much I struggle with depressive tendencies. Absolutely. I struggle with self-worth. I struggle with valuing myself, believing in myself. I've always talked about there's like this river of sadness that's always been sort of like flowing through me, in some ways because of it. But also, I don't know that I would trade it in because it allows me to connect with so many people who feel that same stuff, who struggle with the same things. And it's also why I lean really heavy into the things that help me feel good, the habits that really support me not falling into depressive episodes. And it's better than it ever was, but I still struggle with it. And it can still sometimes really surprise me when it happens. So, I mean, that's really like like the dark side of the light work that I do. But I talk about that too. I mean, I get a lot of that darkness out through punk rock and heavy metal and music, and I'm all about allowing for the rage and the anger and the grief and the expression of those things. Only because like if we don't, it grows into like a hardness inside of us. So I don't mind it all spilling out. But I mean, that's like the short answer to your question. Really, I could go on about it, but um, I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And it really started to bring up some feelings for me too, as well, Jessica. Um, my father left when I was young, 6, 7 years old, and he kind of left to start his new family without us. So my mom raised us, and we had sort of intermittent times with him, but he was more focused on his new family. So one thing when I became an adult and visiting, and I'd actually had our daughter, first daughter, wanted him to meet her so that he could at least know one of his grandchildren. But I could tell that his wife, wouldn't have been my stepmother. She had no involvement in my life. Didn't really want us to be around their family. So I kind of left it. But I said to him one day, I said, Dad, if you ever get sick or near death, let me know if you're going to die. I'd like to know if you die. And lo and behold, 20 some years ago, I read his obituary and never knew that he died other than the time when I read his obituary. So that really hit me hard, just reading about my father's death. And it took me almost 20 years, just a few years ago, when I finally found out where he was buried. I couldn't confront that until just a few years ago, where I went to his gravesite and forgave him. So those upbringings that we have can affect us immensely. But I didn't let it hold me back either, because you can tell what I'm involved in today, and maybe some of the things you don't know about my past. But I've kind of moved on, but it still is a point where it needed some healing. And I don't know if you've had that healing point. Did you give your sort of some forgiveness back to your parents in some way?
Yes, absolutely. And that actually happened a long time ago. It really did. I mean, really, when you're willing to just look at the larger picture, you can't help but forgive. And especially because I realized that like the statute of limitations had run out on blaming anybody for like, me, and how I handle it. Like I could easily have I can easily fall into a pity party and feel sorry for myself, and it can still happen, easily. But not because of that. not because of that. Like, I wouldn't trade any of it because it's led me to, like, literally be sitting right here with you. And, I think it's been enormously good for my heart, everything that I've experienced. And, so a 1,000%, like, just yes, absolute forgiveness. And so just for anyone who's questioning if there absolutely can be forgiveness, and there is forgiveness. But there's still residual around self-worth and stuff that I carry. So it's not even about my parents or how I was raised. It's just now about the work I'm doing. And a lot of it's that deep spiritual, secret, private work, of developing my own sense of faith, in what's true and what's real for me. But yes, forgiveness, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Joe?
Well, I'm gonna go off tangent again and say, I'll give you a pat on the back because not many things get me really, really excited in this conversation, and your site did, and it's right now I got it narrowed down. I was trying to think of what it's Ferraris and reading your stuff is two of the things that get me excited. So you're in good company, and the the things we're talking about, I said it on the website, so it's not or Substack. I've been dealing back and forth for the hospital for a couple of days, dealing with a family member that almost died. I mean, got very close to the end, which is not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about that gave me time to sit and read and and really digest people's, and that's when I got on yours, and then I kind of kept going, and I read another site with another younger lady who'd gone through trauma, like you talk about it, and we talk about generational trauma, and I worry about these phrases sometimes because I think they get said so many times that they cease losing meaning. It's like authenticity and all this stuff. Now it gets repeated so often that it ceases to mean anything. It doesn't mean that it's not real, and that science now supports that the things that happened to our parents in some way rewired them so that it was transmitted to us.
Mm.
And then you have that guilt and that grief going back and forth. Your parents are upset because they feel like they did you wrong when it really wasn't them. It was their parents and their parents for them. And the society and the world that we live in now, where we could have an entire 8-hour conversation on that, is we don't have the ways to relieve stress, and we're not constantly in survival mode like we were raised to be, right? I mean, it was hunter gatherer, and it was community, and we evolved to live in small groups, and now we live in these big huge cities or big societies, and um, we're just not adapted, and we're not going to adapt to it. So it's starting to influence us other ways, right? Um, so yeah, I'm going to go back and read because I really like some of this, and I do want people to go check out your list because this list it's deceptively simple,
Mm.
as I will put it, and um, I mean, some of them like pretending I like something because someone else likes it. I mean, how many of us have done that? And when the thing to do is say, I just don't enjoy it. I don't want to go do it. Um, and one that specifically applies to this is giving a shit about the algorithm. I love that one because we are almost trained like lab rats to seek those likes and those reads and those comments. And I fight it as much as I don't want to, and as much as I tell myself, you don't care, you don't care, you don't care, you don't care. And then there's the damn dashboard that I pop into every morning that's telling me how many I lost and how many I gained, and I'm like, crap, what did I say? What did I do? And then I have to start all over again, right?
Yeah.
And it gets frustrating, because you're constantly adjusting yourself. So I think a lot of this blends into what we're doing on I Am Day, and it's getting people back to that mindfulness and saying, you know, I and I and one of the reasons I got taken with this when Richard brought it up to my attention is I absolutely believe that. I believe we are the architects of our own life. I believe, if you've read the poet Invictus, have you ever read that?
Mm.
I've got it tattooed on my arm. I absolutely believe that. I believe we are the masters of our fate, and and I don't believe we're predestined, and I don't believe the story was written, and and that day is about standing there saying, "This is what I am," and I don't need to be what you want me to be, or what my mother wanted me to be, or what my father wanted me to be, or what the world decides I'm going to be. I am this, and I am going to be this. And, you know, I'm going to say right now, I hope you come back on that day because we'll be doing stuff all day on that day. And because I don't get excited. And if you know me, I don't get it. I don't get excited. I'm just, when I go to a party, everybody describes me as the bodyguard because I just stand there and kind of, you know, I'm checking the doorways and I fall back in my habits. But I love the list, and I ask everybody. I'll put the link out after we get done with this. I want everybody to go to read the list because it's great. Um, I'm not saying go get it tattooed on you like I did because that's my thing. But um, I'll ask you this, and then we can continue if you want to. Because um, when you do imagine someone hearing your message on the IM Day, which one do you hope, or what do you hope lands most in their heart? What do you hope they get from you?
That's a really good question. I think that I mean, Richard and I talked about this a little bit on telling my story. Really kind of helping, like bringing in some of the longer version of a little bit of my story that I talked about here. And I think that if I'm going to tell my story and really share it, I think what I would like people to walk away with is first to know that um, what happened to you doesn't have to define you, or you get to choose how it defines you. You get to choose what you make of it. And you get to choose what you do with the materials that you're given. And you get to choose the story that you tell yourself, and you get to choose the story that you tell the world about yourself. And I hope that that helps people feel that they have agency, but that also you don't have to live under the label of trauma or the label of whatever it is that you're living under. Um, and then the second part of that would be as you are deciding who you want to be in the world and how you want to use these materials to live a life you love and love a life you live, that it's all right here inside of you already, that you've always been whole, you've always been complete. There's nothing in this world that can take that from you, no circumstance. And once you're awake, once you realize and you're now aware of the scope of your experiences, that is really the ultimate power that you have to then decide to start paying attention from within. And all the answers are just literally right there and from moment to moment. So we don't need to project into the past, project into the future about who we should be or how we should be or what we should do. We get to relax and naturally open to letting who it is we're made to be flow through us and flow out into the world and trust that it's good. So kind of like you were saying, Joe, a lot of us grew up with original sin and you're born a sinner and you're born bad. I don't believe that with my whole heart. I don't believe that. I don't think anything is born in sin. I don't think anything is born bad. I think it's all born good. And that is at the heart of who all of us are. We are born good and we are good. And that never stops being true, no matter what we do or no matter what happens to us. So that would be
Oh,
it.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and Harriet said, "How do we find a ways of leaving that behind?" And I think it's a skill where you get up each morning and you have to learn to listen to your heart
Mhm.
and you got to learn because we've constantly got this brain in the foreground going, "Don't do that, do this, don't do that, do this. This is how you get liked. This is how you do this," and you have to get in front of that and and say, "Stop,
Yeah.
stop." you're not being what you want to be, and this is not going to make you happy. And you can have 10 million fans on Instagram or Substack and make millions of dollars of it. And this is, I think, why we have people in high places who've reached the pinnacle of success that just decide to call it quits, right? Because they realize I've gotten there and I'm not happy. And that's the whole goal in life, is it not? Is to be happy. And to, it's not achievement, it's not making $1 million. I've been down that road. It sucks, you know. And I love what you say. I do. I mean, I'm 1,000% on board with the message, and I'm not being patronizing. Like I said, Richard knows me. I'm usually I don't get excited, but I called him before we started this. I said, I can tell you right now, we're not going to be on topic the entire thing. We're just going to, she's punk rock and she likes music and I don't know what kind of music Richard likes, to be honest with you, but we would get along. We would get along. But I said, I could sit here and go through this list, and like I said, we could talk for 8 hours, and I don't think that anybody, I don't think everybody wants to sit here and listen to it. But
Hey, Joe, just let me interject. There is some commentary. And first of all, don't you all just love Jay? I've seen a lot of hearts pumping here. A lot of people are pounding the heart button. So thank you, everybody out there. There was a question or a point that people are wishing this was recorded. It is. Joe will be able to post and we will share this recording. So don't worry, it'll be saved in the Substack. So we're happy that you're asking these questions. Joe, do you mind if I just jump in with Jessica?
no, we need to shut me down because
Okay.
I'm
I'm going to say I learned something. I have 2 dice. I learned this from something that you were hosting. You're hosting some summer slowdown in August, Jessica. And do you know what these are? What are these?
Those are roll the dice.
Okay, I'm calling it shake, rattle, and roll. So, Jessica, I'll let you expand on a little bit, but this was one of the drops that one of your colleagues or collaborators in the summer slowdown shared a way to explore an adventure and just live life by some chance. And I'm not a gambler. I really am not. I've never been to Vegas. I don't like slot machines, but I found my two dice from my backgammon game and pulled them out. And I want to take an adventure. So I'm going to start by shaking the first one.
Okay.
Oh, it's a 1. That's a low number, but let's see what happens next. The next one, it's a 6. So the concept is to take the adventure. I'm going to get on my dual sport motorbike. I think, I don't know if I told you that I had a motorbike, but I'm going to get on my motorbike and drive 16 miles down the road and stop. And that's the adventure. Stop and look around and see what's happening 16 miles away and just enjoy that feeling that I just went somewhere spontaneously without a plan. And here I am, here now. So can you tell us a little bit more about your summer slowdown?
Yeah, yes. So, I'll start at the beginning, but we'll circle back to the dice so that people understand what that's about. So Summer Slowdown, I'm running it for the month of August. You can still sign up for it. I probably have a link somewhere on Substack here. Actually, my most recent post where I shared a music playlist. If you click on that, you can get a link to Summer Slowdown. It's 31 days, August, most of August. And each day I send you an email, and each email features like a topic on like being more present, in your life right here, slowing down for this final month of summer. And there's also a featured like teacher or artist or a musician or somebody who's offering a little practice or a teaching or something just from their world to help you slow down. So what Richard's referring to is on day 4. My friend Danielle Krista, also known as the Jealous Curator, she's here on Substack. She's an artist and she curates artists from all around the world. This practice came from one of her books called Creative Block, helping you unblock your creativity. It's a practice where you roll the die. And for, like Richard just rolled a 16, so he's going to go take his bike out for 16 miles. And you could even roll the die again to tell you how long to stay in that place.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So you can do whatever you want in that place for that designated amount of time. You could take a bike. You could take
34.
34
34.
minutes. Okay, so you're going to ride 16 miles and stay there 34 minutes. You could also roll a 16 and say you're going to ride for 16 minutes and stay for, walk 34 miles. Who knows? You can decide. You can decide. But that was one of the practices that was offered to kind of help break out of the mundane or the things we can get stuck in, and each day offers something beautiful and different from 31 different people. So go sign up
And I
for it.
think that's a great idea. Sign up for it on Substack. You can see it on Jessica Amos's Substack. And I think I saw Charles Freylake just join in a little earlier on this live. What's he doing on the 31 days?
Charles was day 2. Charles was day
Oh,
2,
okay.
and uh he just wrote a beautiful, wonderful piece called Being Useless. And I love Charles and his writing. So
So do I. So do I. That's wonderful. So you can check that out. Jessica Amos on Substack, Love Jay, and the Summer Slowdown. Lots of good fun. And I'm looking forward to more drops each day. And maybe I'll do some more crazy things there too as well. So, Joe, back to you.
Okay. Well, I'm not ready to quit, but I guess we got to. So, I think that's one of the things when you find something you really get passionate about, you really want to talk about, you get kind of that way. And I'm going to say this one and I'm going to stop, maybe. Um, One of your stop is to believe that, and this applies, I'm going to say it because it applies here, right? Um, Believing in sales funnels is the best way to get business is one of the things you're going to stop, right? And I thought it might go this way. I've proven it right as we've gone because I guess your antithesis to that is working one-on-one with people, right? Is that's kind of what you will do and what you won't do. And I think that's another one that we really need to pay attention to because it is. I think what comes through in your voice and what you said is the authenticity behind it. And again, I said something about that word, but it's the feeling and the emotion behind it. And I can attest to that. I think it is. I think when you get out there and you're doing something like this and you really, really, truly love it, it comes through, and people start embracing that because that's what people crave now is that passion and that enthusiasm and it's not all laughter, is it? It's grieving and it's hurting and it's crying and but I think that's what we all want. We all want to know it's okay, especially, again, I'll jump back because I'm a man, obviously. Um, we want to be, it's okay. It's okay to just let go.
yeah.
And I'm emotional.
Hey, Joe, I say I love you every morning, don't I? I say I love you every morning. To you.
Yeah. Yeah. He said, I'm not that I love you guy. I try to, I'm, like I get up and tell my little girl I love her, and I get up and tell my stepson, and my older daughters are older; they're gone and out now. But I try to do, um, and my dad was that way. My dad was always, he was very conscious that, that the last thing he said to me might be the last thing he ever said to me, and it was always, "I love you." Um, we got me off topic again. I don't know why you did this to me. Anyway, I think it's important for especially, all of us know it's okay to come sit down in the basement and cry. It's okay to go out in the backyard and kick the grill if that's what you feel like, if that's what helps you, I've done it. Have I, people made fun of me. I threw my laptop out the back door one day because I got frustrated and, you know, I felt better.
Yeah.
Dale didn't feel it, but I did.
Dell.
So, but I do. I've thoroughly loved this conversation, and I would keep it going. I know.
Well, Joe, I'm going to jump. Let me jump back in, and I wouldn't be doing much justice to our call if I didn't give a plug to IM Day and what Jessica is going to be doing for us on IM Day. So, Jessica, we've got you down for 11:30 on September 24th, this September for IM Day, and you'll be doing a talk, as you said a little bit earlier, about maybe just expand on that, and then I'll tell people how they can join.
Perfect. Yeah. So, I'm gonna talk a bit about like my story. I think I have a very, very interesting story. It is very relatable for a lot of people, even if you don't have the exact same story, and really offer some really practical tools for like as you're coming into your awakening and your healing and maybe facing a lot of these things, that we talked about, like the mess of it, the mess of waking up and unraveling and looking at things. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about some things we can do very practically in the daily, maybe mundane, maybe ordinary, but that I think will be very soothing for the heart and for the soul in the awakening process and in the process of learning to forgive and take ownership of yourself and your life and learning to stay with yourself. So, that's really going to be the heart of it. We'll probably meditate a little, we'll laugh a little, I'll probably cry too. And we'll just be together in it.
Thank you, Jessica. And so, for those of you that want to find out more about I Am Day, that you need to check us out at iamday.org and join. That way, you will get any communications of the upcoming schedule of speakers, events, talks, music. The whole concept of the theme is Feel Real Again. And there is some messaging, and Joe and I have talked about this in some of our posts, that we're celebrating 100 years of the game of life. That's a book that is dear to actually all three of us, that we've all read it and have a lot of feelings around Florence Scovel Shinn. And let's face it, folks, 100 years ago for a woman to be speaking about how to heal and how your words are your wand, that whatever you say will be. It is a little more spiritual than what we're talking about here for I Am Day, but 100 years ago, she self-published that book. And I know some of you here are aspiring authors and wanting to write a book yourself. And just to think that we will be acknowledging that message, that spirit, that vibration that has traveled across centuries to be here today, that brought us three and all 60 of you that are here with us today on this video. We're all here because of that vibration. So we hope to see you at I Am Day. And Jessica, we definitely will see you on I Am Day on September 24th. Joe and I will be co-hosting some pieces on that day as well. And that, Joe, when do we do these lives? Every what?
Tuesday.
10:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern, or no, 12. What is it there, Joe?
12:30 Central.
Yeah, Central.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
I might be live from Madison Square Garden. Who knows? I've not given up on my dream yet, so we'll see how it goes. But thank you to everybody that came today, because 60 is phenomenal. I love my readers, and I try to tell them as often as I can. I do. I absolutely do. And I guess we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay.
I really, 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 really. I don't think did I say I enjoyed this?
Yeah.
But we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much for having me. I really loved being here with you both and everyone who's here today. Thank you. It's really an honor. I'm grateful.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.